I'll get started. We'll talk a little bit about pruning, dormant oil spraying, I guess, and a few trees I'll take you through. We'll go through a few examples. I don't know if I'll do too much cutting. That might be boring just to see me cut some stuff, but we'll talk about some concepts and do a few things. So I'll show you a few things I have here first to start. You can just come down here. Can you see everything? You might want to come a bit closer here. We're just figuring this all out. So these are just the pruners I use. I talked about it in the blog there or on the website. What they call bypass pruners, where they pass through the other one and go across. You can get ones that they call anvil that's got a flat side and this blade has two edges that comes up against it. Those ones aren't recommended. Or scissor types where both blades actually move against each other. Those ones have a tendency to come apart here and start leaving frayed edges. And like I said, give them a good clean. So this is one that I actually just dug out of the gardening shed. So like I mentioned, when you first take them out of the shed for the year, they're going to be maybe a bit rusty, they'll be a bit dirty. You don't want to start introducing that into your trees. So I have carry around a little, I think it's just bleach and water, just wash them with soap. You know, just dip that in and wipe them. I'm a little bit, you know, when it comes to sterilizing my tools, especially between trees, and especially if you're dealing with anything that's diseased or has pests, just make sure you keep everything nice and clean. And then so you can get pruning sealer, pruning waxes, different stuff like this. Sometimes I use just toilet wax like this. I actually like this a bit better. It's a bit harder. This stuff's a bit soft and runny, especially when it gets to be sunny. I don't always, or very rarely actually, wax or seal the cuts unless I'm cutting off something really big, an established branch, something that's diseased, and then I'll usually just leave it. You can get the serious stuff like this. This has got asphalt. It's a bit chemically. I usually very rarely or never use it. Once in a while, if you know, there's something really dramatic, I might, but I generally don't recommend that kind of stuff. So I'll just show you my sprayer here and dormant oil spraying. So the same time of year when you're pruning, you also want to do your spraying. I've got this big backpack sprayer and it's a dream. I used to have the little hand pump one and the little hand sprayer, but it's very cumbersome and you've got to lift it up and stuff like that. And then this is just a spray kit. So this one has the lime sulfur and horticultural oil. It's called dormant spray kit. When you're dormant oil spraying, you're actually just spraying oil on dormant trees. So dormant oil isn't a thing in and of itself. You can make your own, which I often do with just 1 cup of vegetable oil, 2 cups of soap, mixed to 1 gallon of water, and just shake it up. And there's all kinds of other recipes online. People recommend different kind of soap. I usually do dish soap, but people recommend different kind of soap, special kinds of oil instead of vegetable oil. Some will suggest peroxide, baking soda, stuff like that. So if you check online, they'll give you all kinds of recipes for dormant oil spraying. So you just go through there. We'll talk a little bit about the pruning and shaping the young trees now, and then get into a few other things. So these are a couple young trees, or trees that are, you know, I'll call them 1 year old, but they're probably 4 to 5 year old, but we'll call them 1 year based on when you're going to plant them. So these are ones that we would sell at the nursery, and they were pruned last year. So if you come take a look, come maybe a bit closer. When you're first training your trees and you're first starting out, what you want to look for is probably 4 to 6 or 4 really good lower scaffolding branches like you can see here. And when you're looking for them, what you want is branches that are, you know, ideally 1 inch or 2 apart, and we'll work our way up the tree, and branches that come off at a good, what they call a crotch angle. So you're looking for anywhere between 45 to 90 degrees. You know, I'd say 60 to 80 is kind of ideal. If they come up too straight up or too acute, the problem is, if you maybe come closer here, you'll see as they grow, they start, you know, the collar starts growing in and it starts getting crowded when it grows up at the top, and it starts to get weak, and they have a tendency to actually break off when they start getting really heavy with fruit. And it just also impairs the growth. Where the collar starts getting in there, the branch actually isn't as strong when it comes out. So your first couple years you want to look for these kind of branches. And the other thing you want to do is you want your branches to kind of rotate around 90 degrees around the tree. So 4 to 6 branches, and then try to keep them kind of, you know, 40 to 90 degrees around. So if you look at this one here too, you're kind of look 90-degree angles going around. So if you actually come up top, I don't know if it'll work, but we can try and hold the camera up top like this here. You can see that the branches kind of come around at kind of the different clock directions, 3, 6, 9, 12, or as best you can. You know, you still have to select strong branches with a good angle. So that's what you're looking for when you're looking at pruning off your first branches, your first couple years, and then you would cut off pretty much anything else through here. Now these were done last year and they don't have a whole lot of new growth, so they're not, you know, I'm not going to do a whole lot of stuff, but that's what you're looking for when you're first training the tree form, stuff like that. So that's kind of the first year stuff. What we'll do is we'll walk over through the rest of it and I'll show you some of my mature trees and we'll talk about a few other concepts. You gotta watch where you're walking. So this is we'll come over here to this tree next. This is an apple tree. And this is probably 2-3 years old, or 2-3 years since I planted it in the ground. So it's getting very vigorous, so if you come, you can see that, you know, I've done the same thing when we first started out. We've selected some of these branches. Now, I've kept a few too many, or maybe not, if you count them all. But it needs a little bit of work. I'll admit that I've fallen behind a little bit on some of my own pruning, so some of them aren't perfect examples, but this one's actually a pretty good example compared to some of the other ones. This is one of the ones I planted newer when I figured things out a bit better. So if you see that pattern, you know, the selected branches that were nice and wide and open, evenly spaced around. So what we'll do is we'll touch base on the yearly pruning. So now that this tree's established and I'm coming back to it, and you're kind of maintenance pruning. So the first thing you want to do is look for anything that's dead, diseased, or damaged. So in this case, you know, there's not a lot of terribleness going on, so I don't have to take anything like that off. But that's the first thing you want to look for. Anything dead, diseased, damaged. So things that, you know, obviously don't have buds, things that are broken, bent, things that just don't look right, get them off right away. And that you want to actually do all through the season, not just in the spring. If you come out in the middle of summer, traditionally when you don't do much pruning, if you see something that's dead, diseased, or damaged, get it off right away. You don't want that on your tree. It's going to cause all kinds of trouble further down the road. Just snip it off right away. So the next thing you look for, this one's not a perfect example because there's not a lot. This tree's a great example. Let's come over here. This one's a plum tree, and this one has a more upright tendencies. So you can see the branches don't have perfect angles. It looks a little bit different, so you'll train it a little bit differently. We won't talk too much about that, but what you're looking for when you're doing your pruning is getting rid of all these water sprouts. You can see this is a perfect example. This tree's got all kinds of these perfectly upright, super vigorous growth. This is one year wood that's just exploded straight up through the tree. You know, you don't want any of that on your tree, so that definitely all needs to come off. This is, you know, not going to be fruiting wood. It's going to take a lot of the resources from the tree, and you'll just cut them right off. Okay, make a pile. So when you are doing your cutting, you can see here this one actually is a bit long. So if you come back over here and take a look, where you want to actually do your cutting is right at the branch collar. So if you can see here, it actually starts stepping out a little bit. Some trees have different lengths of collars, but you want to actually take it right at that collar, kind of like that. And this one here, it's kind of like that, right along the collar. A nice, see, my pruners are actually starting to get a bit, they're not closing well at the tip, and they're starting to leave a bit of a fray. So I'm probably gonna, you know, dismantle them and try to clean them up a little bit. don't cheap out when you're buying pruners, and don't hesitate to get rid of them when they start doing this, because it's not ideal for your tree to be leaving that kind of ratty stuff. But that's so that's the first thing you want to do, is look for these water sprouts and just get rid of them all. You don't want any of them. They're just going to weaken the tree. That's the first thing you're looking for when you do your annual pruning. We'll come back to this tree and I'll show you the other concepts and other steps when I'm pruning. So the next thing you want to look for is anything that's growing kind of back into the tree, crowding the tree. Now I'm not going to do any cutting here, but we'll talk about the branches I would cut. Some of this wood I'm going to come with a bag and save some of it for doing grafting and other things, and I want to clean my pruners and try to fix them up first. So I'll put them down, because if not I'll be very tempted to cut. So, and we'll just show you. So this is a perfect example of a branch that would come off. So right here, anything that's going back in towards the tree. So this coming back in. This one here I'd probably take off, it's coming back in. These ones here are actually a couple water sprouts that are coming right back in. I take those off, this off, you know, these off. Some of that stuff that's coming right back in. You want your tree to be open. You want to actually be able to see through the tree when you're looking at it and it's all leafed out. You know, that gets light air to all your fruit, prevents diseases, stuff like that. So start by taking anything like that back. And then what I would also do is take anything that's covering itself. So here's an example of two branches that are really coming out on the same, kind of the same plane. So you can see as it would grow, this branch is going to shade this branch. You know, they're going to compete. So you'd probably take off, you know, I'd end up taking off this bottom one, and then the same thing here. I take off this one and try to keep it opened like that. And the other thing you're going to look for is, so here, one that's just crossing and rubbing. So if you come over here, these two branches are too close. This one's actually rubbing on here. So you can actually see it's probably been here a while. It's starting to break it down a little bit. So that's going to cause an injury and a wound. You know, take this down. In this case, what I might actually do is take this, you know, take this full branch down, take this branch down. I would probably debate it for a while, but I would likely get rid of one of these. You know, they're competing with each other. So that would, you know, there's no point keeping them both. Some of this here, the same thing. I would take everything growing back in, everything shading, so that it kind of grows out nice and open like a fan, you know. In this case, I may actually, when I come out here, be tempted to take it off, potentially even right back here, and then it'll come out nice and open. So the next thing, you want to look at the top of the tree, and when you're trading the top. So if you want your tree to grow tall and be 20 feet, 40 feet, I mean, they can certainly grow that long. The trouble is, it's going to be hard to get the fruit. It's going to be hard to keep pruning, keep maintaining. It's going to just start getting crazy on you. So we do recommend trying to keep it down as best you can. Keep it open if that's what you want, and that'll give you kind of the most fruit. So you can see right here, obviously, I would have clipped it right back here in the past, and then it came and spread out. So this year, and this is an interesting concept here too to talk about, when you are cutting, your tree is going to grow back the way the bud's facing, or the way the next branch is facing. So what I might do, depending if I want to keep it nice and open, is if I cut it right here, let's say, this branch is going to be the new leader, and it's going to kind of come out this way. One thing you want to, another tip, is you don't want to prune into the sun, because if you're staring at the sun, you're not going to make the right decisions. You're going to get all blurry, and you're going to cut off something you don't want to cut off. So to train the top of this, like I say, what I would do is open up this. I would probably take off this and this, and let it come here, and this, and yeah, I would definitely take it off here, and then it's going to be up and open. And over the years, you can train it like that, and that should be, you can kind of, if you're diligent with it, you could kind of keep that at the maximum height, and then you'll have a few nice branches up there, and you'll have a nice open pattern that'll be easy enough to harvest. The same goes for the branches. So if you look at, I'm going to pull the fingers out, but I'm not going to. So if you look at the branches here, the same thing is the branches start getting these leaders that just start going crazy as well. And they'll just start going as high as they can. You don't want them to compete with the center and be as high as the center. So as your tree grows, what you'd want to do is take your branches off. So what I would do is actually cut this one here, and then it's going to step out. And this is a concept to try to get it more opened, is if you cut the branches just right, it'll start stepping out. Right here, I would probably take it, and this branch is going to step out, and it's going to have a nice flowing open. This one here, I might even take it here and let it step out so that it starts getting bigger and opener and more stepped out. I think I said that a lot of times now. I'll take you to a few of my more mature established trees so you can see what that looks like on a bit of an older tree. Now some of my trees here aren't necessarily a perfect example because they've sustained different injuries, and I've done things for other various reasons. I've been taking some trees down, a lot of them got crushed, but that's a whole other story. So in this case I actually took off the whole center leader and I've stepped it open. Now a lot of people choose to do this, and this is something I may end up choosing to do. It gives you a lot of good outward growth like that. So you can see when I say stepping it out, if you look here, this is a branch that obviously I cut off over the years, and then the tree reopened from here. I would have taken this one off, it would have reopened from here. When I cut off this one, it reopened from here. You know, it's starting to get low, and you don't want it growing low like that, but you can see it's got a really, really nice open kind of feel to it. A few other ones here, you can see that same concept. They've been crushed as well, so like I say, they're not perfect examples. We'll go for a bit of a walk through the rest of the apple trees, but those are the main points. The most important, of course, is the disease, deads, and damage. Be sure to get those off, for sure. And then the water spout. Anything coming straight up, them off, and those are the most important things. Those would be what I would say, the fundamentals and the must-do and the actual critical steps. The rest of it is, you know, a matter of how you want to train your tree, what you want your tree to look like. You know, if you want fruit, if you want a tall tree, you know, but a bit of a preference thing. So this one's been trained out. This one got crushed, like I said. So this is one of the few times I would use that black tar, because it was, you know, I really wanted to save it. It was really dramatic. You know, I really needed to do some work. And same thing goes for this one's another plum tree. So it's interesting to see that different trees have different growth tendencies. So this is a plum that grows really flat, really open, and then really kind of twisty and gnarly. And that one was another plum that grows straight up. So some trees have all kinds of different tendencies when it comes to that, how they grow. Here's another apple tree. This is a good example, despite the fact that it got crushed and it got damaged as well. But you can see exactly what it looks like. If you come over on this side, maybe, you can see exactly what it looks like. Nice, open, and flat. So over the years, I've taken off anything that's been coming up back into the tree. Anything that's been coming up back into the tree, and kind of keeping it stepped out. You can see I obviously cut it here at some point, maybe here at some point. Stepped it out so it's nice and big and open and runs on that kind of flat plane. And that's the same thing I would do again this year. You know, take these straight up stuff, take some of the straight down stuff off and give it that nice open plane. Looking for things that are crisscrossing, so I, you know, get rid of one of these, or potentially just shorten them and just keep it open like that. And that's pretty much it. It's not I know a lot of people get pretty caught, pretty overwhelmed, pretty nervous about this grafting, or not grafting, pruning. So you know, it can be overwhelming, but that's this kind of the simple, easy part of it. So if there's any particular questions, I can answer a couple now, but that's pretty much the end of the big pruning workshop for today. Hopefully that's helpful, that people can get started on their trees. This is the perfect time of year, so you want to do it like late winter, early spring, before the buds start swelling, the buds start growing. I prefer to do it actually this time when the buds are starting to get a little bit active, because if you come and see the buds, you can actually start telling the difference between a fruit bud and a branch bud. So this ones that are flat, flush, and they run up here, those are for branches. And if you see these ones that are big and swollen and on these little stumps, these ones are where the flowers are going to come. So if you look here and here, these are where the flowers are going to come. So you can actually helps you make your decisions too. If I was going to prune this and then I said, well, look at all the fruit buds on this one, I would leave it, you know, and you would select, you know, maybe one that didn't have as many fruit buds. But if there's any questions popping up, I'll address them now. Otherwise, that should be about it. This video should stay on the page for anybody that has any wants to refer back to it. And we'll do it again tomorrow at 6. So if anybody has any feedback about this format or anything, or any other questions, I'll try to address them tomorrow night at 6 as well. So do we see anything popping up there? Perfect. So we'll call it for the day, and that's the kind of the fundamentals of pruning and your early spring maintenance. So we'll figure out how to turn this off, and thanks for stopping by today, everybody.